My name is Lisa Hayes, and I'm 66 years old. What I'm about to tell you changed my life forever. The funeral for my husband, William, was the quietest day of my existence. There, beside his grave, I received a message from an unknown number that froze the blood in my veins. I'm alive. That's not me in the casket. My hands trembled so violently I nearly dropped the phone. "Who are you?" I tipped, my heart pounding. The reply came almost instantly. "I can't say. They're watching. Don't trust our sons." Those words cleaved my soul in two. My world tilted as I lifted my eyes toward Charles and Henry, my own sons, standing by the casket with strangely calm expressions. Their tears looked rehearsed, their embraces stiff and cold. Something was terribly wrong. For 42 years, William had been my partner, my refuge, the pulse of my life. We'd met when I was 24 in the small town of Spring Creek, growing up on the same dusty back roads, sharing ordinary dreams. I cleaned houses to support my ailing mother. William repaired bicycles in the little shop he'd inherited from his father. We were poor, but happy, anchored by a love that had no price.
I remember the first time he spoke to me. It was a Tuesday morning. I was walking toward the market in my faded green dress and worn shoes when he stepped out of his shop, hands blackened with grease, and smiled with a shy courage that pierced straight through me. "Good morning, Lisa," he said softly. "Need me to check your bike?" I didn't even own a bike, I'd laughed later, but I made up an excuse just to keep talking. That conversation grew into long afternoons beneath the old oak in Town Square Park, whispered promises, and finally a simple wedding lit by hope instead of wealth. The early years were hard. We lived in a tin-roofed house where we set out pots during every rainfall, but our laughter filled the leaks. William worked from sunrise to dusk at the shop. I sewed clothes for the women in town. When Charles was born, my joy was almost unbearable. He had William's wide eyes and my stubborn smile. 2 years later, Henry arrived. Gentle, bright, perfect. I poured every ounce of love into those boys, feeding, clothing, protecting, and believing nothing could ever separate us. William adored them. He'd take them fishing on Sundays, teach them to mend things with their hands, spin bedtime tales until their eyes fluttered closed. We were a family bound by love, or so I thought.
As the years passed, cracks appeared where devotion used to be. Charles, always ambitious, began questioning why we lived so modestly. "Why don't we have a car like everyone else?" he'd ask. Henry followed every word his brother said. When Charles turned 18, William offered him a job at the shop. "I don't want to get my hands dirty like you, Dad," he said, his tone sharp as broken glass. "I'm going to be someone important." Those words wounded William more deeply than he ever admitted. At night, I'd find him on the porch, staring up at the stars, sadness written in the lines around his mouth. His son hadn't just rejected his work, he'd rejected his very way of life. Charles did become someone important, at least by the world's measure. He found work in real estate in the city, soon joined by Henry. They earned more in a month than William and I saw in a year. At first, I was proud. Our boys had escaped poverty. But pride slowly gave way to silence. Visits dwindled. Phone calls shrank to formality. When they did appear, it was in expensive cars, tailored suits, and conversations about investments. Their eyes held pity laced with embarrassment. "Mom," Charles said during one of their rare visits, "you and Dad should move somewhere better. This place is falling apart." He was right. The roof sagged, the paint peeled, but that house held our memories. William only smiled. "Money's changed them, Lisa," he murmured later. "We aren't enough anymore."
I kept denying it. "They're just busy. William, they'll come around." But I knew the truth. We'd lost our sons long before I lost my husband. The distance grew after Charles married Jasmine Albright, a city woman whose beauty was matched only by her disdain for simplicity. The first time she visited, she stepped onto our dirt porch in red heels that sank into the mud. "Nice to meet you," she said, barely grazing my fingers with her manicured ones. During dinner, she picked at her food, moving it around like an obligation. I overheard her whisper to Charles, "Next time, let's just take them to a restaurant." Every word sliced deeper than she could imagine. Henry stayed single, but mimicked his brother's indifference. His visits were hurried, his phone constant in his hand. "I have to run, Mom. Meeting early tomorrow," he'd say, already halfway out the door. Family Sundays vanished. Christmas became mechanical. Expensive gifts we didn't need, short stays, longer silences. William and I aged quietly together, living off small savings and pride. One night, as the crickets hummed beyond our porch, William sighed. "It's not their money that hurts me," he said. "It's that they think it makes us worth less."
He was right. Then came the day Charles bought a grand house in the city, soon followed by Henry's luxury condo. Their success should have made me proud, but instead I felt invisible. Jasmine began suggesting, "You should sell this old place and move into a nice retirement community. It would be so comfortable for you." William's voice turned steely. "We don't need a home. We have one." But I saw our sons exchange a look of polite irritation. To them, we were problems to be solved. Soon Charles arrived with papers already drafted. "Mom, Dad," he said, smiling too wide, "if you sell this house, I'll add some money so you can move somewhere better." "There's no better place," William answered calmly, though I saw his jaw tighten. Charles persisted. "Dad, you're 70. Maybe it's time to retire." "Son," William replied, "my work isn't a burden. It's what keeps me alive." Henry leaned in, voice syrupy. "But you could get hurt, Dad. An accident at your age." Their concern sounded rehearsed, more urgency than love. In the months that followed, their pressure intensified. Realtors appeared without our consent. Appraisers examined our home as if it already belonged to someone else. Then Charles said during dinner, "Jasmine and I are planning to have kids. We'll need help. If you sell this house, that money could be an early inheritance." "An early inheritance? While we were still breathing?" "Son, when your mother and I die, everything will be yours. But while we live, our decisions are our own." Henry's patience snapped. "You're old, Dad. You can't live in the past forever." That night, William whispered, "Something's wrong, Lisa. This isn't just ambition. There's something darker." I wish I'd listened closer. 3 weeks before his death, Charles came by alone. "Mom," he said, eyes unusually serious, "no matter what happens, Henry and I will take care of you." At the time, I found it comforting. Now, remembering it beside William's grave, those words chill me. No matter what happens. The accident that changed everything happened on a Tuesday morning. William had left early for the shop, as he had done every day for more than 40 years. I was in the kitchen preparing his favorite lunch, meatloaf and mashed potatoes, when the phone rang with an urgency that made my heart race. "Mrs. Hayes?" A voice I didn't recognize asked. I'm calling from Memorial Hospital. Your husband has been in a serious accident. You need to come immediately." The words blurred like ink in water. My knees buckled. I clutched the counter to keep from falling. "What happened? Is he alive? Is he conscious?" "Ma'am, please come as soon as possible," the voice said before hanging up. My neighbor Doris drove me because my hands shook too much to hold the keys. The road to the hospital felt endless. William was careful, meticulous. How could he have had an accident? When we arrived, Charles and Henry were already there. That surprised me. No one had notified them, at least not me. But in my desperation, I didn't think about it. "Mom," Charles said, embracing me with a force that felt too deliberate. "Dad's in bad shape. The doctor said a machine at the shop exploded. He's got burns and a severe head injury." Henry's eyes were red, but his expression was strange, more tense than sorrowful, like a man waiting for confirmation of something he already knew. "Can I see him?" I asked desperately. "Only immediate family," the nurse said. "One at a time for 5 minutes."
When I stepped into the ICU room, my breath caught. William lay connected to a maze of tubes and machines, his face covered with bandages. I could barely recognize him. His breathing came through artificial rhythm, and the steady beeping of monitors felt like a countdown to something inevitable. I took his hand, the only part untouched by burns. "William, my love," I whispered. "I'm here. You're going to recover. You always do." For a moment, his fingers moved, faint but real. His eyelids flickered. My heart leapt. He was fighting. The next 3 days blurred together. Nights in the waiting room, coffee that tasted like metal, and tears that never ran dry. Charles and Henry stayed close, but their attention seemed fixed more on the doctors than on their father. I overheard them whispering about insurance policies, beneficiaries, and costs. "Mom," Charles said on the second day, "we reviewed Dad's insurance. He's covered for $50,000, and his workers' comp might add another $75,000. "Why are you talking about money?" I snapped. "He's still alive."
Of course, Mom, he said smoothly, but I saw the cold glint behind his eyes. On the third day, Dr. Patterson called us into a small office. He was a gentleman with kind eyes, but that day, his voice felt like a knife. "Mrs. Hayes," he began, "your husband's condition is critical. His burns are badly infected, and his head trauma is severe. We have to be realistic." "What does that mean?" "It means we should prepare for the worst. He's in an induced coma. We can keep him alive, but it's unlikely he'll ever regain consciousness." My world collapsed. 42 years together, gone in a whisper. "I want everything done," I pleaded. "Every treatment, every chance." Charles and Henry exchanged a look that chilled me. "Mom," Charles said softly, "Dad wouldn't want to live like this. He always said he never wanted to be a burden." "A burden?" I hissed. "He's your father, not a burden." Henry leaned forward. "We just don't want you to suffer, Mom. The bills could destroy your savings." Again, money. Always money. That night, sitting by William's bed, I held his hand and whispered, "I can't let you go. I can't live without you." His fingers twitched again, stronger this time. His lips moved. I leaned closer. "William, what is it?" But no sound came. When I called the nurse, she only shook her head. "Involuntary reflex, ma'am. It doesn't mean awareness." But I knew my husband. He had tried to speak, tried to warn me. 2 days later, at 4:37 a.m., the monitor screamed. I woke to flashing lights and rushing footsteps. "No!" I cried as the doctors worked to resuscitate him. For 40 minutes they tried. Then they stopped. "Time of death, 4:37, one of them said quietly. My body went numb. I clung to William's hand until it turned cold. An hour later, Charles and Henry arrived, too composed, too efficient. They brought papers, contacts for funeral homes, and phone numbers for insurance agents. "I already spoke to Spring Creek Funeral Home. They'll take care of the body."
Henry nodded. The insurance claim is already in process. Their precision terrified me. How could they move so fast, so coldly, an hour after their father's death? The funeral was set for Monday. Charles arranged everything without asking my opinion. He chose the cheapest casket, the shortest service, and told me it's what Dad would have wanted, simple and quick. But William deserved better. The day of the funeral was gray and bitter. Doris helped me dress in my black gown, her fingers trembling as she buttoned the back. "Be strong, Lisa," she whispered. At the cemetery, I noticed how few people came. No coworkers from the shop, no old friends, just me, my sons, Jasmine, Doris, and the pastor. For a man who'd lived 70 years in Spring Creek, it felt wrong. "Where's everyone from the shop?" I asked. "We didn't want to bother them," Charles replied quickly. "Dad preferred intimate things." That was a lie. William loved people. He lived for community. Why hide his funeral? During the service, Charles kept glancing at his watch. Henry shifted impatiently. Jasmine scrolled her phone under her veil. My stomach turned. As the pastor spoke of peace and eternal rest, I felt hollow. I didn't want William to rest. I wanted him back.
When it came time to toss dirt on the casket, my legs gave out. Doris caught me as sobs tore from my chest. The thud of earth on wood was the sound of my heart breaking. Then, at that very moment, my phone vibrated. A text. I'm alive. That's not me in the casket. I froze. My vision blurred. The letters danced like a hallucination. With shaking fingers, I typed, "Who are you?" The reply came immediately. "I can't say. They're watching. Don't trust our sons." The phone slipped from my hand. Doris bent to pick it up, but I stopped her. "Are you all right, Mom?" Charles asked, stepping closer.
I'm fine, I lied, clutching my purse. I just need to go home. On the drive back, those words echoed endlessly. I'm alive. Don't trust our sons. Was someone playing a cruel joke? Or could William truly be alive? If not, who knew so much about us? That night, the house felt like a tomb. Every object breathed memories of him. His mug, his tools, his pillow still carrying his scent. I replayed the last few days in my mind. The explosion that no one had verified. The sons who'd arrived before being called. The money talk at the hospital. None of it made sense. I went to William's old desk. Inside his metal lockbox were all our documents. The life insurance policy recently increased from $5,000 to $50,000 just 6 months ago. I didn't know he had changed it. Why hadn't he told me? Then another paper, a new workers' compensation policy dated 2 months before his death. My phone buzzed again. Check the bank account. See who's been moving the money. My heart thudded. Whoever this was, they knew too much to be guessing. The next morning, I went to the bank. Mrs. Thompson, who'd known us for decades, offered condolences. "Lisa, I'm so sorry about William." "Thank you," I said. "I just need to review our accounts." When she handed me the statements, my blood ran cold. 3 large withdrawals in recent months. 1,000, 3,000, 4,000. "Who authorized these?" I asked. "Your husband," Mrs. Thompson said gently. "He came in himself. Said it was for shop repairs. Once or twice, one of your sons came along. Charles, I think." Charles. She showed me the signed slips. The handwriting looked like William's, but shakier, forced. That afternoon, another message arrived. The insurance was their idea. They convinced William to increase it. It was a trap. I stared at the screen, trembling. The puzzle pieces began fitting together in the most horrifying way.
That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house made me jump. Every shadow seemed to whisper William's name. The phone lay on my bedside table like a living thing, glowing faintly in the dark. I kept waiting for another message, terrified and desperate for one at the same time. At 2:14 a.m., it came. They made it look like an accident. Trust no one. My breath caught. The contact number had no name, just a long string of digits. I typed back, "Who are you? How do you know this?" No reply, only silence. I stared at the message until dawn, my mind circling around the same impossible thought. What if William really was alive? Or worse, what if he'd been murdered?
The next morning, I drove back to the shop. It was still sealed with yellow tape. The air smelled of burnt metal and oil. The windows were shattered, the roof blackened. Standing there, I could almost hear William's voice, calm and steady. "Always fix what's broken, Lisa. Never throw it away." But some things couldn't be fixed. A man in a gray uniform appeared from behind the building. "Ma'am, you can't be here," he said. "Investigation's ongoing." "Who are you?" I asked. "Insurance investigator," he replied, flashing a badge. "Name's Robert Dunn. We're still determining cause of the explosion. Looked like a gas leak." "Gas leak?" I frowned. William never used gas in his shop. Everything was electric. Dunn paused. "That's what we're checking. Could have been a faulty line." "Or sabotage," I whispered before I could stop myself. He looked at me sharply. "You think someone did this on purpose?" "I don't know, but nothing about this feels right." Dunn scribbled something in his notebook. "If you remember anything unusual, call me." He handed me a card and walked away. When I looked down,
His name and number were real. Not a ghost, not a dream. That evening, I went through William's old notebooks. He kept everything: repairs, expenses, even grocery lists. On the last page of his final notebook, a line caught my eye. If something happens to me, it wasn't an accident. My heart stopped. The handwriting was William's, shaky, but his. I read it again and again until tears blurred the ink. He'd known. The phone buzzed again. Find the blue folder in his drawer. Don't tell the boys. I nearly dropped the phone. Whoever this was, they knew about the shop, the notebooks, everything. I ran to the garage. William's old workbench stood just as he left it, tools neatly arranged, drawers closed. I pulled them open one by one until I found it. A blue folder, dusty, hidden under a stack of invoices. Inside were papers, bank statements, copies of insurance forms, and several handwritten notes. The first note said, "Charles insists we increase coverage, says it's for safety. Henry agrees. Something feels wrong." Another, "They came today, both of them, tried to convince me to sign papers I didn't understand. I pretended to agree, but I won't sign anything until I speak to Lisa." And the last, "If they push again, I'll go to the bank myself tomorrow." Dated 2 days before the accident. I sat there trembling, clutching those papers. The realization settled like poison in my veins. My son's, my own blood, had something to do with William's death. The next morning, I confronted Charles. He was in his office, glass walls and leather furniture. "Mom," he said, surprised but polite, "you should have called first."
I found William's notes, I said, my voice shaking. Why were you pressuring your father to change his insurance? Why were you both in his shop the day before he died? For a moment, he froze. Then he smiled. The kind of smile that hides a blade. "Mom, you're grieving. You're not thinking straight. Answer me." He stood, adjusting his tie. "Dad wanted to protect you. The new policy was for you." "I don't believe you." Charles stepped closer. "Mom, you're tired. You need rest. Don't dig into things you don't understand." He placed his hand on my shoulder, firm and cold. "If you start spreading stories, people will think you've lost your mind." For a moment, I saw something in his eyes, fear or guilt or both. I turned and walked out before my legs gave way. Outside, I sat in the car, shaking. My phone buzzed again. "He's lying. Check the storage unit. Number 117. He hit the truth there." I stared at the message, my heart pounding. There was only one person who could know about that unit, William. We had rented it years ago to store old furniture and equipment. Could he really be alive? I drove to Spring Creek Storage. The manager, Tom, recognized me. "Lisa, I'm so sorry about William." "Thank you, Tom. I just need to open unit 117. He handed me the key. "It's been a while since anyone came by. Last visit was, strange. About a week after the accident?" "A week after?" I repeated, my skin prickling. He nodded. "A man came with your key. Said he was your nephew. Signed your name, too." My pulse raced. "Do you remember what he looked like?" Tom frowned. "Tall, maybe late 30s, dark hair, looked a lot like your son, Henry, actually." I thanked him and hurried to the unit. My hands shook as I turned the lock. The door groaned open, revealing a dim space filled with boxes and an old workbench. Everything looked untouched, except one corner where a fresh trail of footprints marked the dust. On the bench lay an envelope with my name scrawled across it. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a single flash drive and a note. "If you're reading this, Lisa, it means they've already tried to erase me. Don't trust Charles or Henry. What happened in the shop wasn't an accident. It was a setup. They wanted the insurance. The explosion was triggered. I survived, but I'm in hiding. If you want proof, look at the files on this drive. And don't tell anyone you found it." The message jolted me upright. My breath came in short, sharp bursts as I scanned the darkened room. The clock on the wall read 11:46 p.m. Outside, the night was unnervingly still. No wind, no crickets, not even the distant hum of cars, just silence.
They know you found it. Whoever was sending these messages knew everything. Where I'd been, what I'd seen, even what I'd discovered in that storage unit. My heart hammered against my ribs. I grabbed my purse, the flash drive, and William's note, stuffing them inside. I didn't know where it was going, only that I couldn't stay. The moment I stepped outside, headlights flared at the end of my driveway. A black SUV. Engine running. Panic surged through me. I ducked behind the rose bushes, my hand shaking uncontrollably. The SUV door opened. A figure stepped out, tall, male, wearing a dark coat. For a brief, horrible second, I thought it was William. Then the man turned, and the porch light revealed Henry.
My own son. Mom, he called softly. Too softly. You home? I stayed frozen, barely breathing. He walked up the steps, knocked once, then again, louder this time. Mom, we need to talk. He waited. Then, pulling out a key, he unlocked the door and stepped inside. I didn't wait to see what came next. I crawled along the hedge, slipped through the side gate, and ran. Barefoot, heart pounding, I ran through the back alley toward Doris's house 2 blocks away. When she opened the door, her face went pale. Lisa, what on earth? Please, I gasped. Don't ask questions. Just lock the door. She did, without another word. I slumped into her kitchen chair, trembling. What happened? She whispered after a moment. They're after me. Charles and Henry. They did something to William. I think he's alive, but... Doris's eyes widened. Alive? Lisa, are you sure? I pulled out the note and the flash drive. He left this. He said not to trust them. She touched my hand gently. Honey, you're scared and grieving. Maybe you should call the police. I shook my head. And tell them what? That my dead husband is texting me from hiding? They'll think I've lost my mind. Doris fell silent. Then I remembered Robert Dunn, the insurance investigator. He'd believed me, at least a little. Maybe he could help. The next morning, I called him. Mr. Dunn, it's Lisa Hayes. I need to see you. It's urgent. His tone sharpened. Mrs. Hayes, where are you? At my neighbor's. Please, don't tell anyone I called. Understood. Meet me at the diner on Pine Street in an hour. When I arrived, he was already there, stirring coffee, his tie slightly crooked. He looked exhausted, but alert. You said it was urgent, he said, motioning me to sit. I slid the flash drive across the table. William left this. I think it proves the explosion wasn't an accident. His brows knitted. Where did you get it? From our storage unit. Someone's been there. My sons knew about it. I hesitated. I think they tried to kill him. He exhaled slowly. That's a serious accusation. I know how it sounds, I said. But please, just look. He plugged the drive into his laptop. For several long seconds, nothing happened. Then a folder appeared, Truth. Inside were several video files and scanned documents. Dunn opened the first video. The screen flickered, showing the inside of William's shop. The timestamp read 3 days before the explosion. William sat at his desk, looking directly into the camera. His face was tense, his voice slow. If anyone finds this, it means I was right. Charles and Henry have been pressuring me to increase my life insurance. They said it was just in case something happened. But today, I found out Charles contacted the insurance company pretending to be me. They forged my signature on additional forms. I told them I was going to the police. They left angry. The video cut off there. My stomach twisted. Dunn opened another file, a scan of the altered insurance papers. The signature was shaky, inconsistent, and yet unmistakably William's handwriting or a close imitation. He looked up at me. Mrs. Hayes, this is serious evidence. If authentic, it's fraud, and maybe worse. Do you believe me now? He nodded slowly. Yes, but if what he says is true and your husband's still alive, you may be in danger. I already am, I whispered. Dunn leaned forward. Listen carefully. Don't confront them again. Don't go home. I'll have these files verified and take them to the police. For now, you need to disappear. Disappear? Yes. Do you have anyone outside Spring Creek you can stay with? My sister in Denver. Good. Go tonight. I'll contact you once it's safe.
That evening, I packed a small bag, clothes, documents, William's note. I left a message for Doris. Don't worry, I'm safe. But before I could leave town, my phone buzzed again. You can't trust Dunn. He's one of them. I froze in the driver's seat. My blood went cold. Meet me where we first met, the Oak in Town Square, midnight. It was signed, W. I stared at the message, shaking. If it was real, if it was truly William, then he was here, in Spring Creek, alive. But if it wasn't?
Midnight found me under the old oak, just as it had found us all those years ago. The square was silent, except for the rustling leaves. A stray cat darted across the cobblestones. Then I saw a shadow move near the fountain. My breath caught. "William?" I whispered. The figure stepped closer. For a moment, the moonlight touched his face, and I gasped. It was him. Thinner, older, with scars along his temple, but unmistakably William. "Lisa," he breathed. "It's really me." I stumbled forward, tears spilling down my cheeks. "William, oh my God, how?" He took my hands, trembling. "There's no time. They think I'm dead, but if they find me, they'll finish the job. Charles and Henry, they were working with someone else, a man from the insurance company. They wanted the payout." I shook my head, refusing to believe, yet unable to deny the fear in his eyes. "William, we have to go to the police." "No," he said sharply. "Not yet. Dunn's part of it too. He's been feeding them information. The only safe way is to get out of town, together. But our sons! They stopped being our sons the moment they tried to kill me." A sudden light swept across the park. Headlights. William grabbed my arm. "Run!" We bolted through the trees, the gravel crunching beneath our feet. Behind us, voices shouted. Charles's voice. "Dad, stop!" William didn't look back. "Don't listen," he hissed. "Keep running." A gunshot shattered the night. I screamed. William stumbled, clutching his side. Blood darkened his shirt. "Go, Lisa. Don't let them find the files. Promise me." "William, no." I tried to hold him, but he pushed me away. "Run." Another shot rang out. I fell to the ground. When I looked up, William was gone, swallowed by the darkness. The gunfire still echoed in my ears as I crawled behind a bench, heart hammering against my ribs. I could taste metal in my mouth, fear, sweat, maybe blood. My phone buzzed once more in my pocket, its vibration sharp as thunder in the silence. Run to the train station. Don't trust anyone. The sender was the same number, the one that had warned me before. I didn't know if it was William himself or someone helping him, but right then, it didn't matter. I ran. The town square that had once held our laughter now felt like a hunting ground. My shoes slapped against the pavement as I sprinted through narrow streets, my breath tearing in my throat. In the distance, I heard car doors slam and voices shouting my name. Charles's voice. "Mom, stop. You don't understand." But I did understand, too well. My own sons were chasing me through the night like predators. At the train station, the last outbound train was minutes from departure. I threw cash at the ticket window, not caring where it went. "Anywhere," I gasped. "Just anywhere." The clerk handed me a ticket. "Northbound. Leaves now." As the train began to move, I collapsed into an empty seat. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Through the window, I saw two figures burst onto the platform, Charles and Henry. Their faces were twisted with rage. Henry pounded the glass door, shouting something I couldn't hear as the train pulled away. For the first time in days, I allowed myself to cry. Hours later, the train stopped in a small town called Ridgehaven, miles away from Spring Creek. The dawn light was pale and cold. I found a cheap motel near the station and locked myself inside, curtains drawn, lights off. I replayed everything in my mind, the explosion, the forged insurance papers, William's hidden message, the meeting under the oak, the gunfire. He was alive, I'd seen him, but now he was wounded, somewhere out there, maybe dying again. I reached for my phone. A new message awaited me. He's safe for now. Don't go back. They'll be looking for you. Trust the name Eleanor. She'll find you. I typed back, "Who are you? Where is William?" No reply. 2 days passed. I stayed hidden, surviving on vending machine snacks and tap water. Every knock at the door made me flinch. I barely slept. Then, on the 3rd day, someone slipped an envelope under my door. My stomach turned cold. I stared at it for a full minute before picking it up. No return address, only my name, written in neat, careful handwriting. Inside was a single note. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm a friend of William's. My name is Eleanor Price. He asked me to protect you if anything happened. Meet me tomorrow at the old chapel outside Ridgehaven. 9 a.m. Come alone." Below it was a small photo. William, alive, standing beside a woman I didn't recognize. The photo looked recent. I pressed it to my chest, tears burning my eyes. He was alive! Really alive! The next morning, I drove to the chapel. It sat half-collapsed among the hills, its steeple leaning like a tired sentinel. The air was damp and heavy. "Eleanor?" I called, stepping inside. A woman emerged from the shadows, late 40s, sharp eyes, wearing a dark coat. She held herself with the quiet authority of someone used to danger. "Lisa Hayes?" I nodded. "You're Eleanor?" "Yes. William sent me after he escaped the fire. I helped him disappear." My throat tightened. "Is he safe?" "He was," she said grimly, "until 2 nights ago. After he met you, things changed. Someone tipped them off. They're searching everywhere." My knees nearly gave out. "He was shot. I saw it." Eleanor's expression darkened. "Then they got to him before we could move him again." "Is he dead?" I whispered. She didn't answer right away. "We don't know, but if he's alive, he won't contact you again. It's too dangerous for both of you." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "They're our sons, Eleanor. Our own children. How could they—" "Money makes monsters, Lisa," she said quietly. "Your husband uncovered their scheme. The insurance, the forged documents, the offshore account in Charles's name. When he confronted them, they tried to silence him."
How do you know all this? I worked in the same insurance firm. I saw the falsified papers before they erased them. William came to me for help. He was planning to expose them. My hands trembled. "Then we have to go to the police." She shook her head. "Not yet. Dunn's part of their circle. If we go now, it'll disappear. We need evidence they can't bury." She handed me a small folder. Inside were copies of transactions, large sums transferred from William's business account to one under Henry's, dated weeks before the explosion. "When the time comes," Eleanor said, "you'll give these to the authorities, but for now you must stay invisible. Do you understand?" I nodded, though my chest ached. "What about you?" "I'll find William, if he is still alive, and I'll make them pay." That night, I stayed in another cheap motel, too afraid to sleep. The rain drummed against the windows. I clutched the folder to my chest. Near midnight, my phone lit up again. Unknown number. My heart leapt. "Lisa." My breath hitched. It was William's name. "I'm safe. Don't believe everything Eleanor says. She's not who she claims to be." I froze. My mind spun. "William, where are you?" No reply. Then another message arrived seconds later from Eleanor. "They've tracked you. Get out now." I stared at both messages, hands shaking violently. One of them was lying. But which one? I grabbed my bag and ran to the window. In the distance, headlights flickered through the rain. Another black SUV. My pulse roared in my ears. "God help me," I whispered, and slipped out the back door into the storm. The rain lashed at my face as I stumbled down the narrow alley behind the motel. The thunder drowned out everything except the pounding of my heart. My bag was heavy against my shoulder, the folder inside pressing like a heartbeat of its own. Behind me,
I heard a car door slam. Voices. Mail. Urgent. I ran. The alley opened into a side street lined with shuttered shops. My breath came in short, sharp bursts. The headlights swept across the wet asphalt. Too close. I turned sharply into a narrow passage, slipped and fell hard onto my knees. Pain flared, but I pushed up and kept running until the road disappeared into the forest.
Somewhere behind me, tires screeched. When I finally stopped, my lungs felt like fire. I was deep in the woods outside Ridgehaven. Rainwater dripped from the trees. My clothes clung to my skin, my hair plastered to my face. I collapsed against a fallen trunk and opened my bag. The folder was still there, miraculously dry inside its plastic sleeve. I took out my phone. No signal. The last 2 messages still stared back at me. Don't believe everything Eleanor says. Get out now. One of them was lying, and I couldn't tell which. I stayed hidden until dawn. When the storm finally eased, I followed a dirt road that led to a small farmhouse. The sign read, Fowler's Orchard. I knocked on the door, shivering uncontrollably. An elderly man opened it. You look like hell, ma'am, he said gently. Come in before you freeze. His name was Tom Fowler, a widower who lived alone. He offered me tea and a towel. I told him I was traveling, that my car had broken down. He didn't press for details. You can stay in the barn if you need a night's rest, he said. No one comes by much these days. Thank you, I whispered. That night, lying on the hay under an old wool blanket, I stared at the rafters and prayed William was still alive.
The next morning, I woke to the distant sound of an engine. A black SUV, again, parked at the edge of the orchard. Tom, I whispered, who's that? He frowned, didn't say. 2 men, said they're looking for their mother. My blood froze. Tell them you haven't seen me, I said quickly. Tom nodded, stepping outside. From the crack in the barn door, I watched. Charles and Henry stood beside the car, umbrellas dripping. Henry's expression was cold. Charles's smile was strained. We're just trying to find her, Charles said smoothly. She is confused, needs medication. Tom crossed his arms. I ain't seen anyone. Henry's jaw tightened. If she comes by, call this number. They handed him a card and drove off. I waited another hour before emerging. Thank you, I told Tom. He nodded. Whoever they are, you don't own them a damn thing. That afternoon, I finally got a signal. My phone buzzed immediately. A message from Eleanor. Are you safe? For now, I typed. They were here. How did they find me? They must have tracked your phone. Turn it off. Meet me tonight at the gas station by Route 12. I have news about William. Every part of me wanted to believe her, but William's warning replayed in my head. Don't believe everything Eleanor says. Still, if there was a chance he was alive, I had to know. By sunset, I reached the gas station. It was nearly deserted, just flickering neon and the hum of an old refrigerator. Eleanor was there, waiting by a black sedan. You came, she said, relief in her voice. Thank God. Where's William? I demanded. He's alive, badly wounded, but alive. He's been moved to a safe house near the border. Tears stung my eyes. I need to see him. You will, she said, but not yet. We have to get the rest of the evidence first. There's more on that flash drive. Encrypted files. I know someone who can decode them. Something about her tone, too confident, too rehearsed, made my stomach tighten. Why didn't you tell me that before? I asked. I didn't want to put you in more danger, she said quickly. Now, please, give me the drive. We can end this. I hesitated. My fingers brushed the flash drive in my pocket. Then I saw it. Just for a second. The reflection in her car window, another figure, crouched behind the sedan, holding something metallic. A gun. I stepped back. Eleanor, who's here with you? Her expression faltered. Lisa, listen to me. No, I said, my voice trembling. You're lying. Before she could answer, a gunshot split the air. The bullet shattered the station sign behind us. Eleanor screamed and ducked. From the shadows, a man shouted, "Get down!" I turned. The man ran toward me, limping slightly, his face pale, blood-stained. It was William.
Lisa, he shouted, run! Bullets tore through the air, glass exploded. Eleanor dove for cover, firing back. My world dissolved into chaos. Screams, gunfire, the smell of gasoline. William grabbed my arm and pulled me behind a wall. His touch, warm, real, sent a sob bursting from my chest. William, oh God. No time, he said. She's not who she says she is. She's working with Dunn and the boys. They set me up, Lisa. They wanted both of us gone. The sound of sirens echoed in the distance. Eleanor swore under her breath and sprinted toward her car. William winced, clutching his side. We have to go, now. He led me to an old truck parked behind the station. We sped off just as the first police car appeared. We drove for what felt like hours, winding through dark back roads until the lights of the town vanished. William's face was pale, his breathing ragged. You're hurt. You need a hospital. He shook his head. Can't. They'll find me. We need to reach the border before morning. I gripped his hand, terrified of letting go. What happens when we get there? We start over, he whispered. New names, new lives, far from all this. Outside, the first light of dawn crept over the hills. For a fleeting moment, I allowed myself to believe we might make it. Then I noticed the blinking light under the dashboard, a small red tracker. They're following us, I whispered. William's eyes widened. Get ready, Lisa. It's not over yet.
The red light blinked like a pulse of doom beneath the dashboard. William slammed his hand against it, trying to dislodge the tracker, but it was fixed deep in the wiring. They must have planted it when I was unconscious, he muttered, sweat glistening on his forehead. How much time do we have? I asked, gripping the seat. He looked at me, tired, haunted, but still the man I loved. Not enough. Without another word, he veered the truck off the main road and into the woods. Branches clawed at the sides. The headlights cut through the darkness like knives. The vehicle jolted violently as we hit a ditch and the engine sputtered. William? He reached for my hand. If anything happens to me, you keep driving until you reach the old quarry. There's a cabin there, hidden by the trees. You'll be safe. I'm not leaving you again, I whispered. He gave me a faint, broken smile. You always were stubborn. Behind us, distant headlights began to appear. One pair, then two, then more. They found us, he said.
The forest thinned as we reached the clearing. The quarry stretched out below, filled with mist and moonlight, an open wound in the earth. William stopped the truck and turned off the engine. The only sound was our breathing and the faint rumble of engines closing in. He turned to me. Lisa, listen. Everything we've suffered, everything they've done, it ends tonight. No more running. What are you going to do? He pulled a small flash drive from his pocket, the same one I'd carried, but this one had a red stripe along the edge. This is the real proof. The one you had was a decoy. This holds video recordings, signed confessions, everything. If we get this to the authorities, real ones outside the state, they can't bury it. I stared at him, realization dawning. You planned this. He nodded. From the moment they tried to kill me. Before I could respond, a voice rang out across the clearing. Dad, step away from the truck. Charles. His silhouette stood atop the reg, gun in hand. Henry emerged beside him, his face pale, his movements unsteady. You don't have to do this, I shouted. Charles's voice cracked through the night. You don't understand, Mom. It's too late. They'll kill all of us if we don't finish this.
Who? William demanded. Who are you working for? Henry's hand trembled. It wasn't supposed to go this far. They promised no one would get hurt. Henry, I whispered, stepping forward, you can stop this, right now. But Charles snapped, don't listen to her. He's lying. He's been manipulating everyone. He raised the gun. For a split second, everything froze. The night, the wind, the world itself. Then William shoved me aside as the shot rang out. The bullet tore through his shoulder. No, I screamed, catching him as he fell. Charles's face twisted in horror. Henry stumbled back, shouting, What have you done? I had to, Charles yelled, his voice breaking. He would have ruined everything. Before another shot can fire, police sirens wailed in the distance. Red and blue lights flickered through the trees. Charles's eyes went wide. They found us? How? William, bleeding but conscious, rasped, "You think you are the only ones with the tracker?" A shadow moved behind the police cars. Eleanor, her coat soaked with rain, flanked by officers. "Drop the weapon," she shouted. Charles hesitated. Then for the first time, he looked terrified. He dropped the gun and sank to his knees. Henry followed, sobbing quietly. William's head rested against my shoulder, his voice barely a whisper. "It's over, Lisa. We're free."
Hours later, at the hospital, the chaos had settled into silence. William lay in bed, pale but alive, his hand warm in mine. Detective Ramirez, the officer in charge, stood by the door. "We have enough evidence now, thanks to that flash drive. The insurance ring goes deeper than we thought. Dunn and his partners are already in custody. Your sons, they have confessed." I turned my face away. "They were my boys," I whispered. "How do I live with that?" The detective hesitated. "Sometimes the truth costs more than silence, but it saves others." When he left, William squeezed my hand weakly. "We'll start over, Elisa. Just you and me." I nodded, tears spilling silently. "We already lost everything once. We won't again." Weeks passed. Spring Creek faded behind us. We sold what little remained, packed our few belongings, and drove west. Every mile between us and that town felt like a breath of freedom. One evening, as the sun sank over the mountains, William turned to me with a soft smile. "Do you remember the first time I saw you? That green dress? The one with the frayed hem?" I laughed through tears. "And you asked to fix a bicycle I didn't have." He chuckled, wincing a little from the healing wound. "I still would have fallen for you anyway." We drove on till the stars came out. For the first time in months, I felt something like peace. But peace doesn't last forever. A few days later, I opened my phone to check the news. The headline made my blood run cold. "Eleanor Price missing. Investigators suspect foul play." The article mentioned an unknown man visiting her home the night before she disappeared. Witnesses said he was middle-aged, scarred, and walked with a limp. My eyes lifted slowly to William. He sat by the window, staring out at the horizon, his face unreadable. "Lisa," he said quietly, without turning, "some truths are better left buried." I stared at him, heart pounding. "What did you do?" He looked over his shoulder, his eyes dark, haunted, and somehow distant. "What I had to," he said. The sun dipped below the mountains, leaving the world in shadow. And for the first time in months, I wasn't sure who my husband really was anymore. The silence after that sentence stretched like a taut wire between us. William's words, "Some truths are better left buried," hung heavy in the air. I stared at him, trying to reconcile the man before me with the husband I thought I knew. "William," I whispered, "what did you do to Eleanor?" He didn't answer at first. Outside, the evening wind pressed against the glass, howling like the ghosts of everything we'd lost. He finally turned to face me, his eyes darker than I'd ever seen them. "She was never going to stop, Lisa," he said quietly. "She wasn't trying to help us. She was selling the evidence to the same people who hired our sons." I felt my throat tighten. "So you killed her?" His expression didn't change. "She gave me no choice." I stepped back. There's always a choice. He stood, slowly, as if the air itself had turned heavier. "You think I wanted this? To become what they are? But every time I tried to protect us, someone else tried to destroy us." I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. "You've been lying to me since the night I saw you under that oak." "I had to," he said, his voice breaking. "If you knew everything, you would have run. And if you'd have run, they would have found you." I stared at him, my hands trembling. "And now? What happens now, William?" He didn't answer. He simply reached into his jacket and pulled out a small black phone, a model I'd never seen before. The screen lit up with a string of encrypted messages, scrolling rapidly. "They're still out there," he said. "The people behind Charles and Henry. Dan was just a pawn. Eleanor worked for them, too. They call themselves the Ascendant Trust. It's bigger than insurance, Lisa. It's a machine built on money, death, and erasing anyone who gets in the way." The name chilled me. "And you think killing them makes you any different?" His hand shook slightly as he pocketed the phone. "I didn't start this war, but I'll end it." We didn't speak for hours after that. That night, I pretended to sleep. When his breathing steadied, I quietly slipped out of bed and took the folder from his jacket, the one marked Trust Evidence.
My heart pounded as I opened it under the moonlight filtering through the window. Inside were photos, list of transactions, and names. Dozens of them. Politicians, bankers, investigators. And near the top of the page, circled in red ink, were 3 names I recognized. Charles Hayes, Henry Hayes, Robert Dunn. Next to them, a single line written in William's handwriting. Phase 2. Activate once the truth is public. I didn't know what Phase 2 meant, but I knew it wasn't justice. I quietly slipped the papers into my own bag. At dawn, I left. The motel parking lot was empty except for William's truck. I walked until the sun rose high enough to warm my frozen hands. Then I found a small sheriff's office on the edge of town. When I stepped inside, the officer looked up. "Can I help you, ma'am?" I placed the folder on his desk. "These are evidence of multiple murders, fraud, and conspiracy. The man responsible is named William Hayes. He found your husband?" I nodded slowly. "He's not the man you think he is." They took my statement for hours. When I left, they promised protection, new identity, relocation, safety. But I didn't feel safe, not really. Because deep down, I knew William would find me again.
3 weeks later, I was living in a quiet coastal town under another name. I took long walks by the water, trying to pretend I could start over. But each night I dreamed of the same thing, William standing in the doorway, his face half in shadow, whispering, "You shouldn't have told them." One morning, I received a small parcel in the mail, no return address. Inside was a single Polaroid photograph. It showed a pier, the same one near my new home. In the corner, a man's shadow stretched toward the water. And on the back, written in the same familiar handwriting, "Some truths can't stay buried, Lisa. Neither can love." I dropped the photo into the waves and watched it drift away. As it sank beneath the surface, I whispered, "Goodbye, William." For a long moment, I thought I saw his reflection in the ripples, smiling faintly, just like he did the day we met. Then the tide carried it away, and I finally turned my back on Spring Creek forever.